Hey all you GBA type people, welcome to week 8 of Pivotal Moments for the GBA D-League Season 2. I am Blue from KantocastBlue
And I'm Oldmantup.
and this is the show where we break down the GBA D-League matches and show you where the momentum shifted from one player to another that ultimately decided the match. So, to kind of kick things off, just a quick mention of our first game, the Arcaniners versus the Dolphinians. It didn't actually happen. I don't know that it actually mattered, but the Dolphinians picked up a loss, a forfeit, ultimately, and the Arcaniners are in the playoffs, regardless. So
Yeah, that gives George, aka Septile MC, the top seed. Not that it really matters since only 2 teams go, but he will take the top seed in his division, and he's leading his division going into the playoffs.
rightfully so, that is a smart guy who knows what he is doing. But getting on into the next match is tough. Who are we covering next?
So we're going to jump into the most interesting match by far of the week, and that was the Sters versus the Gastos. And Ellie brought Mega Sableye, Regirock, Heliolisk, Scizor, Sandslash, and Latias. And Mike brought with him Mew, Raikou, Gogoat, Togekiss, Mega Aerodactyl, and Spiritomb. And we're going to preface this, in the event you haven't seen this match, that they both agreed that the outcome of the match didn't affect either of them going into the playoffs or not going into the playoffs. Ellie was guaranteed to clinch the division, and even if Mike won, he couldn't get into the playoffs at this point because of their records. So they had a very fun and spirited match, which was amusing to watch because it was just so bizarre at points. And if I had to pick a specific pivotal moment in this match, it would be at one point Ellie had a baton passed an agility from Scizor to Sandslash. She set up 2 Swords Dance on Spiritomb, and Spiritomb went for a foul play after her second Swords Dance and just one-shot it. And it was just downhill for the most of the ride after that.
Yeah. You know, I had a couple of things written down. That was one of them. The other thing was the triple flinch onto the Latias from the Togekiss. But and if you watch Ellie's side of the match, which was as bizarre as the match itself, the video itself was kind of kooky, if you will. But the music shift that took place between the Spiritomb foul playing the Sandslash was perfect. Not to mention the text that popped up, everything that I was feeling and thinking she wrote on the screen. I mean, honestly, if this match had like a subtitle, it would be How to Troll in Pokemon. It was just so bizarre, but a 6-0 in the Gastos' favor is ultimately what it came down to.
Yeah, it was definitely a big win for Mike, and it was definitely a good way for him to end a season that might not have gone the way he wanted it to.
True.
So it was definitely an impressive feat to watch.
Yeah, and you know what? At least Regirock got an explosion off, even if it didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
But moving on to a game that did have kind of a high-stakes outcome, we have the Bills versus the Shelmets, and this was back and forth. The Bills had Excadrill, Hippowdon, Tyrantrum, Umbreon, Manectric, and Azelf. Still didn't get that Sandrush sweep, but what are you gonna do? Good job, Burke. Side note. The Shelmets brought Manaphy, Garchomp, Reuniclus, Blissey, Weavile, and Fortress. So, I will say that Will kind of made questionable decisions early in the match that maybe didn't set him up to be in as good a position as maybe he wanted to be mid-game, but ultimately, for the moment that I think things just started to kind of fall apart, was Reuniclus living the Azelf explosion, and then Reuniclus setting up the Trick Room same turn, and then, you know, the Blissey stall that just took the entire match down to timer. It was over 100 turns, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
But It's rough, a 3-4 loss for the Bills, which did get the Shelmets into the playoffs. Not exactly the ending that I think I wanted or anybody wanted, really, but you know what? A timer win's a timer win, and I get it. Shelmets want that win. They want that championship.
Yeah, Supergassi was definitely playing for the victory the whole time. The only other thing I have written down that I think started the shift to where Will was a little bit more on his heels was Blissey living a crunch from Tyrantrum and one-shotting it with a counter. And I think that just slowly started the ball rolling downhill because, Blissey was pretty much, after mid-match, the win condition and what kept Gassy in the match and took it to timer, because everything that fell was pretty much everything on Will's team that had a physical attack capable of two-shotting Blissey. And after the Azelf explosion failed to kill Reuniclus, which you mentioned, that was the last thing he had that could do anything to Blissey, and there was just pretty much no hope for Will at that point. But that is going to put Supergassi into the playoffs with George. So we'll be seeing that match next week, and I'm really anticipating that because I really think that Gassie's going to go into this wanting it, not having beaten George yet.
I think a lot of people want to see this match, honestly. I do.
Yeah, so do I. It's going to be a phenomenal match. No matter what happens. But moving forward from here, we are going to see the Seattle Raptors and the Washington Blazikins. And this is the match I have the most to talk about.
Let loose, Tup. Let loose.
Yeah, let's go over the teams. The Blazikins had Mamoswine, Entei, Lucario, Mega Venusaur, Miltank, and Alakazam. And the Raptors brought with them Megalopony, Clefable, Salamence, Gourgeist, Crocodile, and Victini. And this match ended up a 5-0 in the Blazikins' favor. The only Pokemon that ended up getting knocked out on the Blaziken side was Entei. And this was a division-defining match. Whoever won this made it to the playoffs to see Ellie. And here is where I get a little grumpy. What started the downfall for this, in my opinion, was Crocodile came in on Miltank. And G-Heart had seen that Miltank had Seismic Toss. And Seismic Toss always does the level of your Pokemon's amount of damage. And on Wi-Fi bottles, that's 50. Now, Gearheart, according to him, had this set up as an answer to Seismic Tossing Miltank, if I remember correctly. And he brings in Crocodile and sets up a sub with 202 hit points. And I don't know how many of you were around in 4th gen, but you can remember that Seismic Tossing Blissey was everywhere, and the importance of being able to have a Pokemon with 404 hit points, being able to set up a 101 hit point sub, and be able to survive 2 hits from the Seismic Toss. And that was the importance of a 101 sub. So if you ever hear that term, that's what it references. And here, Gearheart was there, and he takes a hit from Miltank, and he sees it does 50 damage. And then he sets up a substitute with Crocodile, and he sees it takes 50 more hit points. And then he proceeds to bulk up, expecting the substitute to make it through another Seismic Toss without fading. And it doesn't. And that was his answer to the Miltank, and he didn't have the game mechanics researched enough, and he explains that he believed that the rounding system went the opposite direction that it did, and that is an easy mistake to make, but something when you're gotta win your division to make it to the playoffs, you have to win this match. That's something you need to take the time to research. And after that, what really just sealed the deal was Gearheart had Gourgeist in, and Nick had Entei in. And Entei was obviously going for a Sacred Fire. And I don't believe the appropriate switch-in was brought here. I don't remember that Gearheart said that he was expecting anything other than a Sacred Fire, and he brings in Victini, which can't survive enough of them to take out Entei in return. So he brings in the Victini, it takes a Sacred Fire, realizes that was a mistake, brings in Crocodile, who's at half health because of the substitute debacle, and drops Crocodile. Now, Crocodile doesn't have Intimidate, it had Moxie because it was set to be a sweeper. So it goes down. Then he brings in Lopunny, which isn't Mega yet. He doesn't have Fake Out, So he megas up, is slower than Entei before it megas because it hadn't been mega yet, and then gets one shot. Then he brings in Victini, which I believe was finally what faint. No, that wasn't even it. Victini comes in, gets a psychic off, and then goes down. So if Victini hadn't taken the prior Sacred Fire damage, it could have come in and taken one, blasted off a psychic, and then taken another. Well, I was a speed tie at that point, so my mistake on that, I believe. But I mean, had the chance of taking this Entei out, which was just wrecking his team. But Victini goes down, and he finally brings in Clefable, which still is not the appropriate switch in my opinion. He should have brought in Salamence that had Intimidate, but never did. And Clefable finally takes out Entei, and then Lucario comes in and flash cannons Clefable and takes it out. Then comes in Gourgeist. Nick proceeds to set up a nasty plot and then just sweeps the rest of the team. And that series of events was just, he made, how many switches? Brought in Victini, didn't bring in Salamence, which had Intimidate and would have taken a Sacred Fire. He brought in Crocodile, which didn't have Intimidate to sack it off, so he loses him on there. Then he brings in Lopunny, which wasn't megaed up, could have brought in Salamence, loses that for nothing, then brings in Victini, which gets a Psychic off before it faints, but never once in that progression brought in an Intimidation Salamence to lower its attack. And I mean, he had done that all season long. That was his bread and butter. And then he didn't do it in this match, which he needed to win to get into the playoffs. And I was just sitting there ripping my hair out because I was so thinking that he was gonna get this match, and then he gets 5-0'd, and I was crying.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough loss, no doubt. Tup, I think you played that beautifully, and I really don't have anything else to say about that match. The sub break from Miltank was, in my opinion, a pretty fatal flaw. Not so much from the perspective of comebacks from that point forward, but just taking needless damage. And, you know, it's tough to come back from that when you do it to yourself. But, yeah, that's definitely a rough loss for the Staraptors. Good for the Blaziken making it to the playoffs, on a positive note.
Yep.
And not that I made it totally public or anything, but after, like, week 2, I kind of sat down and was like, okay, here's my top 4 teams to make the playoffs for season 2. And I actually had the Blaziken, the Arcanines, the Stantlers, and the Bills. I was so close. I was so close to that perfect 4, but the Shelmets are here. So now, I don't know. I'm heartbroken. I kind of want the Dark Horse on my list to rise up. But I also said the Blaziken were going to take it all. But then, you know, the Arcanines are wickedly good. And, you know, Ellie's always been on her game, the Stantlers. It's great. These next battles are going to be ridiculous. I can feel it.
Yeah, I really expect these playoff matches to be just fantastic because, I mean, you know Nick's going to come at Ellie wanting it really bad.
Yep.
And you know Super Gassie's going to do the same thing going after George, just wanting that victory over him after the 2 losses in the regular season. So, I mean, these are vendetta matches where people want to get up and make it to the finals. So, I mean, we got some exciting matches coming up. And I just really hope that they pan out and are good Haxless matches.
Tup, I want to put you on the spot. Who do you want to see in the finals?
Now, who do I want to see or who do I think is going to make it?
Who do you want to see, ultimately?
Who do I want to see in the finals? I want to see Gassie and Ellie.
Okay.
Because, no offense to George, I think he's hands down the best battler in this D-League. But Gassie's my boy, and I want to see him go. And I like Ellie. She's been a personal friend for a long time. And I think she has proven this season that she deserves to be in the finals, and she just has one more hurdle to get over to get there.
All right.
But ultimately, if I had to say who I think it will be, I think it will be George and Ellie.
Okay. Those are...
So who do you think's going to make?
I had that coming, I bet. So, who do I want to see? I want to see... this is bittersweet. I want to see the Arcaniners and the Blaziken. That's who I want to see. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Who do I want to see? I want to see Will, honestly, but he's not he's not an option anymore. Who do I think it's going to actually be? I mean, Nick is my boy. I want to preference that, okay? If you listen to KantocastBlue, you know that he was my pick. I had him on the show and everything, but I got to side with you. I got to say Arcaniners and Stantlers, maybe.
Yeah, that's looking like that will be the favorite to go. Because I think that might have even been the prediction at the beginning of the season, that it was going to be the Arcaniners and the Stantlers.
When my back's up against a wall, I tend to go with consistency. And of the 4 teams in the playoffs, I feel like the Stantlers and the Arcaniners are the most consistent. Skill and everything else aside, I feel like they have had the most consistent matches in their favor. But I'm not rooting against you, Nick. If you listen to this, I still think the Blazin could do it. We're still friends.
Yeah, it's really hard because we're pretty much friends with everybody in the league now, and it's really hard to choose between your friends, especially when it's this close.
Yeah. But good job to everybody for making it to the finals.
Congrats on everybody in the D-League for a fantastic season. I mean, win or
Absolutely.
loss, everybody took it in stride, and we had good matches and good sportsmanship, and that's what it's all about.
And honestly, I'm going to create my own award at the moment and give an honorable mention to the Gastos for most improved. I mean,
Definitely.
I feel like that's fair. Mike came in and was just, it was not good initially. It kind of just wasn't. But craziness of this Week 8 battle aside, you can tell that he kind of, he's comfortable now. He knows what he's doing. Definitely more than he did Week 1. So, good for you.
Yeah, he definitely has had the most obvious and clear-cut improvement week by week as you watch his matches.
But definitely looking forward to the consistency and skill of the top 4 teams, which again are the Blazin, the Arcaniners, the Stantlers, and the Shelmets coming up for the playoffs here soon. Who do you want to see make it to the finals? Let us know in the comments below. Who do you want to see win it? Who do you think is going to win it? You can leave both, because Tup and I did, because we cheated, basically.
Yep.
You can cheat too. Let us know in the comments below.
Did you agree with our pivotal moments this week? Be sure and let us know down below, as well as your picks for the playoffs.
But that's going to wrap it up for this week of Pivotal Moments. As always, I am KantocastBlue.
And I'm Oldmantup. Alright guys, we will catch you on the flip side. Peace.